Hello everyone, I'm here today to do my wrap up for the month of June. And last month I started the month with 23 books in my Storycraft TBR and 11 books in my Ancient TBR. And this month I have 20 books in my Storycraft TBR and 7 books left on my Ancient TBR. So I think I did quite well. I'm almost there, below 20. I read 8 books in total. And I read all of the books that I needed to read for like the different challenges I'm doing and so forth. So I think I did pretty well. I didn't read as much as I wanted to, but yeah, sometimes happens. But let's just get through the books that I read this month. So the first book that I finished is Mild Vertigo by Mieko Kanai. And this was a very enjoyable, interesting read. It's about a housewife that kind of feels like her life is not complete anymore, but she doesn't know what to do about it. And we kind of follow her thoughts. It's like this type of block of writing style, which makes it flow quite well and really makes you feel like you are in her head. So I really enjoyed that part of the book. The writing itself was very good, and I think it was like the thoughts were also very interesting. The next book I read is Fair Play by Eve Rodsky, which is supposed to be about like a sort of self-help book about how to distribute tasks in your marriage or in your partnership better. Some of this was interesting. Some of it was very American-centric. I've never in my life read write a thank you card, for example, and that's something that apparently it's very common in America. I don't know. But yeah, I think this can be useful for people that need it, but it was not what I was looking for into the book. So next book I read was The Physics of Sorrow by Georgi Gospodinov, which was actually the oldest book in my TBR at the right moment I read it, and it's a fairly disconnected thoughts about the Minotaur and how it connects to different things like mental health. It also connects it to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Several things like that. I found it very disconnected. I liked his other novel, Time Shelter, much better. I think it had a much better, stronger message than this did. It was fun to see the same characters come here again, although I mean they are not connected in any other way. They just they are these two quirky characters that are in both of the books, but they don't really add to the story of them in this book, so that they're not connected. But yeah, I found it a little bit disconnected, and it was not clear what it was trying to say. I do like some of the concepts that it hit in some of the chapters, but it was too disconnected for me to feel strongly about the book as a whole. The next book I finished was The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherin Arden, and I read this for the Passwordathon cover challenge. I think it was have celestial things in the cover, and it has little stars. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, it does have little stars. And I thought the language, like the writing, is very lyrical in this book, and for me, I think it did slow the book down, and also the plot was good, but it was not like that engaging, that special. So for me, this fell a bit flat. I think if the writing was something that I could have engaged with more, maybe I would have liked this better. But this is just not the kind of writing that I want, especially on fantasy stories. It's the kind of writing that takes you away from the story rather than involve you in the story. The next book that I read is Flowers for Algamernon, that was written by Daniel Keyes, and this is like a play adaptation of that book. I just bought the play because I bought it secondhand on the internet, and I didn't know. I just saw Flowers for Algernon, and then this is what it came. But I think the story is still readable and understandable, and I thought this was very powerful. I really liked how the main character, this book is about this man that has a extremely low IQ, like 60 something, and he was just working on a factory, and he was very happy working on the factory. He thought that he had lots of friends and they were always joking. It turns out they were making jokes about him and not like for him to laugh at, but he was not smart enough to catch that. And then there is these two doctors that are doing experiments, and they believe that they can do certain operations that will make him smarter. And so he agrees to do that, and they do the operations, and he starts getting smarter. And he starts seeing how people were mean to him, and he thought they were his friends, and he starts not trusting anybody, and at some point he's smarter than this doctor, smarter than everyone else. He's writing papers about different things, and then it is very sad, and it is also very real, and it poses the question of if, like, people often want to be smarter, but is that actually a good thing? Like, most super intelligent people are not really happy. So is it something that you would want to do? So it was very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I know why it's a classic now, and I think it deserves it. So really enjoyed. The next book I read is A Sorceress Comes to Call by Kingfisher. I read this with my book club, and it's my first Kingfisher. I was very excited about reading her for the first time, and this is about a mother and a daughter that they are relatively poor, and the mother is a sorceress, and she decides that she wants to find some rich guy to marry, so that they can have money. And so she finds this squire that has money, and they go live there, and she's a fairly two-dimensional, horrible person. She treats her daughter really bad. She does this thing that is called make her obedient, which means that she kind of takes control of her body, and pushes like the real person aside so that she can control the body, and she can do that to pretty much anyone. And so the daughter is terrified of her. She thinks she's gonna make her obedient the moment that she does something that she doesn't want to do. And when they move into the house of this squire, they are also very isolated, and so when they move, it's kind of the first time that this girl meets people outside her like mom, her mom and her school friends that she was never really allowed to get too close to, and so we see like those relationships develop with especially the sister of the squire that her mom is gonna marry, and how that changes her perspective on what her mom is doing, and trying to see if they can stop some of the horrible things that she's doing. I thought it was very well written. It was very engaging. I wanted to read and keep reading until I knew what was going to happen. I think that the plot of the story was not like massively special, and the message of the story, it had moments in which it was saying something. Especially at the end, there was a moment in which it briefly touched upon why this woman is so horrible, which I thought it was nice that she was not two-dimensional as the rest of the book suggested, but there was I wanted more depth than that, and I didn't get it from here. So although I really enjoyed the reading experience, and I think this book is going to stay with me, at least the feeling of it's not exactly horror, but the tension of it is gonna stay with me, and I'm gonna remember that tension. I don't think the story itself was super special, so I don't know if that's the case with all the Kingfishers, but this one, and I think we agreed in the book club, it was a very enjoyable read. It was a very good time. It was a very atmospheric read, but we lacked some depth to the story. Like, there could have been so many more things that she does to break the mold of the typical story, and she was trying to break the mold. There was a bit of a comment at the end on rituals and what actually makes a ritual work, that I found very interesting, but I wanted more of that, and this was very limited on the amount of like back depth story thing that it had. So yeah, it was a good time. Then the next book I read was Death of the Red Rider by Yulia Yakovleva, which was the longest book in my Ancient TBR for this month, and this was about it's in the Soviet Union, and there is this horse that is killed with the person on top, and this guy, who is kind of a nobody, is in charge of researching what happened and who is responsible. And so we kind of follow this guy. It's a lot about horses, and it's also quite funny and sarcastic about how things worked in the Soviet Union, and I enjoyed the commentary. I felt that was the best part of it. The story, I was just not that interested in the horses, to be honest, and at some point I lost track of all the names, so I was not maybe I was not following with as much attention as I should have to be able to get the story. But I was expecting this to be like a pacey mystery kind of detective story, but the pace was so slow that at some point I just lost the motivation to care, and so I enjoyed the sarcastic moments about the Russian governments and stuff, but yeah, I didn't care that much about who killed that horse, to be honest, and why they killed them. So unfortunately, it was not as pacey as I wanted it to be. And then the last book that I read this month is Sleepless by Marie Darrieussecq. Darrieussecq. And this is a non-fiction sort of essays about the author's experience with insomnia, and how devastating it is as a condition. I think this was very eye-opening and very interesting. Some parts of it I enjoyed more than others. I think there were some parts in which was just like lists of medications that she tried to fall asleep, and there were also a lot of mentions of different famous people that were insomniacs. There seems to be a remarkably high amount of writers and artists that are insomniacs, maybe at that hour of the night where the creativity strikes. They're there to pick it up. I don't know. But yeah, there was a lot of lists of things and people, and that was kind of at the beginning, which I didn't enjoy. But then there was also one section about how capitalism has changed our perception of sleep and why that makes a lot more people insomniacs, about this concept of that we always have to be connected, having our phones, the blue light and all of that, was also very interesting. And at the end she also connects it in some ways to different animals and how different animals sleep and why it makes or doesn't make sense to be insomniac in that context. And so I found a lot of valuable information and a lot of interesting things and thoughts. I didn't know that much about insomnia. I thought it was just a matter of, you should have your rituals when you go to bed and not stare at your phone, but it's a lot more than that. It is a lot more than that, and now I know, and I'm very glad that I know. Another small aspect of this book that I enjoyed, that probably doesn't mean anything to anybody else, is that Marie Darrieussecq is from the Basque part of France, and a lot of my family is from the Basque side of Spain, so there's a lot of connection there, a lot of names and a lot of references, small references to things that are Basque, and I just enjoy that. Because it's not often that I see that in books, I guess. I just enjoy that fact of the familiarity of some Basque things in this book. But yeah, that's a very personal thing. But I think other than that, this book does a very good job at trying to describe the frustration of how much you want to sleep when you're an insomniac, and how little control over it you have, and the extreme extents that you might go into to be able to fall asleep for a few hours. So yeah, very interesting. I really enjoyed it. And then in terms of what I'm reading for the month of July, I am doing the Hirkit, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, version 2, which starts on the 7th of July. It is the 1st of July right now, so I still have a few days, but I have I want to keep some of the challenges that I do and integrating them on this challenge as well, so that is what I'm planning to do. So for the Thorn cover challenge, it's a prompt. I don't remember what the prompt was, but I know that I have already read a book this year that fits that prompt, and as I said before, I'm not going to do prompts that I can complete with something I read this year, so that one I can skip. But the Thorn one was to read a book with punctuation in the title, and I'm counting this because I want to. I'm reading The Old Ways, A Journey on Foot by Robert MacFarlane, and in the official name in Storygraph, in my library and everything, it has 2 dots for the subtitle, and I'm just gonna count that. It doesn't have them here, but I'm still counting it. So this is the one that I'm going to read for that. And then for the oldest book in my TBR is actually Funny in Farsi by Firoozeh Dumas. And I know for a fact that I got this at the end of September last year because a friend bought that for me for my birthday. So I think it's pretty good going that the last books that I have are, the oldest is in September last year. And then the longest book in my TBR is Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck, which is not even 300 pages. So I also have read most of the big books in my ancient TBR. This is the biggest one and it's not even 300 pages, so that's good. And then the other book that I want to read or reread this month, I'm planning to do it and read along with Camila from High Steer Books. And if you're watching this, hit me up because I tried to talk to her and we haven't organized it yet, but I have started reading this today actually. I just want to read it, and I know it's not gonna count for any of the challenge things because it's a reread, so I just want to read it before the challenge starts. It's Tom of Sun by Geetanjali Shree. I read this when it was in the shortlist, longlist winner of the International Book Air a couple of years ago, and I thought it was okay, but I also thought that it was not the time for me to read it, and that's why I thought it was okay. And I thought I could get more out of it, knowing what I was getting into. And so I have started reading this actually today. I'm 20 pages in, and I'm really liking it. So yes, that's positive. And I am actually also making a reading blog for this, and I'm also planning to do a reading blog for the challenge things and explain a little bit more what my plans for the month are and what I'm reading and what I think about it. But yeah, those are all the books that I'm planning to read this month. There is a lot of books that I want to read this month because I'm excited about the challenge, and I want to use that excitement for when I am not as excited, I can still push through. So yeah, let me know if you have read any of the books I talked about. Let me know if you're participating in any challenges, and until next video, bye!